Let's take another look at the most important part of your robot, the NXT brick itself. We've already talked about the sockets on the top and the bottom of this NXT brick where you'll be plugging in your sensors and your motors. And you've already learned how to turn the robot on and off. Now it's time to talk in much more detail about the buttons on the front of the brick. The NXT has 4 buttons on it. Each of these buttons actually does a few different things, but it helps to begin by just talking about the general type of thing that each button does. In a minute, we'll talk about each of the buttons in much more detail. You should think of the orange square button as being similar to the Enter key on your computer keyboard. You press it when you want to do something. The dark gray rectangular button is more analogous to the back button on a web browser. It takes you back a level to where you were before. The light gray triangular buttons are similar to the left and right arrow keys on your keyboard. They allow you to move back and forth between things on your screen. Just as a reminder, to turn your NXT on, press the orange button. Before you upgraded the firmware, it's possible, though unlikely, that you may not have heard that music when you turned your NXT on. At this point, however, when you turn your NXT on, you should hear the music and also see some graphics on the screen. Remember, the NXT will eventually turn itself off automatically if you leave it on for long enough, but most of the time you'll want to turn it off yourself. To turn off the NXT immediately after turning it on, first press the dark gray rectangular button once. The words "Turn Off" should appear on the screen, at which point you should press the orange button. If you've done anything other than just power on the NXT, you may have to press the dark gray rectangular button a couple of times before the words "Turn Off" show up on the screen. But if you keep pressing the dark gray button, eventually the words "Turn Off" will appear on the screen, and then you can just press the orange button to confirm. At the beginning of this lesson, I said to think of the orange button as being similar to the Enter key on your computer keyboard. Pressing the orange button means different things depending on the current contexts. We've already seen the first 2 contexts. If the NXT power's off, then pressing the orange button means turn on the power. If there's a question on the NXT screen like, should I turn off now? Then pressing the orange button means yes. The final context is when the NXT is already powered on and it isn't asking you a question. In that case, the orange button means select. Understanding what this means requires us to talk a little bit more about how the NXT is set up. Remember how I said the NXT is really a small computer? Well, just like your PC or your Mac has a bunch of folders, files, and programs, your NXT also has a bunch of folders, files, and programs. On your Mac, you use your Finder window to see your files, folders, and programs. On your PC, you use your My Computer Explorer window. In both cases, you double-click on a folder to see what's inside of it. The Lego people want to let you do more or less the same thing with the NXT, but they've got 2 problems. First, the screen is really tiny, and second, you don't have a mouse. Because the screen is so small, they only have room to write out the name of one file or folder or program above its picture icon in the center of the screen. They do, however, include just the picture icon for the folder, file, or program that you can find to the right and to the left. On your computer, you use a mouse to move around within an Explorer or a Finder window. On your NXT, you'll use the left and right triangle buttons to move between the icons. Remember, at any given time, you'll only see one name written out, that is, the name that goes with the icon in the center of the screen. You'll also get one picture icon to the right and another to the left. The triangle buttons only have an effect when the NXT is turned on. On your computer, you double-click the mouse when you want to select a folder, file, or program. In order to select the folder, file, or program whose name and icon you see in the center of your NXT screen, you press the orange button. So, just to review, when the power's off, the orange button means turn on the power. When the power's on and the NXT is asking a question like, should I turn off? the orange button means yes. And in any other situation, the orange button means select the icon in the center of my screen. The one button I still haven't really explained in detail is the dark gray rectangular button. Like the triangles, this button only has an effect when the power's on. Most of the time, the dark gray button just means go back up a level. So, for example, if you've used the orange button to go into the settings folder, the dark gray button will take you back out of that again. You should imagine that the very, very top level is where the system asks, do you want to turn off? That's why the way to turn off your NXT is to simply press the dark gray rectangular button as many times as it takes to get to that question, and then answer yes with the orange button. The dark gray rectangular button is also the stop button. When your NXT is running a program, pressing the dark gray button will stop it running. So even though we don't know what any of the icons represent, let's try experimenting with the buttons a little bit. Okay, so if your robot's already on, let's turn it off. And now I want you to turn it on, just so that you get it started at the right place. And what I want you to do is push the left arrow a couple of times till you see the wrench, and you can see that says settings. And we're going to go into settings, so we're going to press the orange button to select. And the first setting on the screen is volume, and actually I want to adjust the volume of my NXT, so I'm going to select again. And on here you can see it gives me some numbers. Right now I'm at a volume of 3. I actually want it to be louder, so I'm going to push the right arrow, and that moves it to a volume of 4. And then I'm going to push the orange button again to select volume 4. Okay, so now I'm a little bit louder. I can also go into another setting. If I go, oh, I'm not in the settings anymore, am I? So let me go into settings. It says settings here, right? So I'll push orange to select. And this time I want to look at a different setting. I want to look at the sleep setting. I don't remember exactly where that is. So we'll just kind of, it's not volume, so I'll push the left arrow. It's not delete all files. Nope. Sleep, here we go. So I'm going to select sleep. And on sleep, you can see as we arrow through this, this says turn off the NXT automatically after 60 minutes. And if I cut it down a little bit, I can go to 30 minutes or 10 minutes. I think I'm going to leave mine at 10 minutes. And then I'll push the orange button to select. Cool. And now I want to quit, so I'm going to keep going up levels with this gray rectangular button. Still not there. Oh yeah, turn off. So now I can push the orange button, and we've shut off the robot.